recording. Welcome everyone. We will talk about the Ukraine-Russia conflict today. We will be looking at multiple segments, so we'll write them out first and then we'll do them one by one. So if you're not interested in some parts, you can check some other parts. What I want to clarify is that I checked information from both sides, which is something people really don't do. Usually when you're an EU fan, you just watch EU news. When you're a Russia fan, you only watch Russia news. I watch both of them, and that's how I came to the conclusion that I'm going to show you today. So first we will look at history of Ukrainian-Russian conflict. We won't go super far. We will just look at the history that is relevant to today's situation, rather than the entire fucking history of the Europe. The second part we'll be looking at would be, I guess, how do I don't know how to call it. Say the progress of war, I guess we can call it. So basically what happened in the recent days and what does it mean. The third part we'll look at is what does this mean for everyone, and by that Russia, Ukraine, EU. And obviously how will this end. So this will be the 4 points we will be talking about today. Yes, we have popcats everywhere. And we'll start with the history now. So basically, the controversy that happened back in 2014, I actually remember this year quite well myself, because it was probably the worst year of my life. My dearest person actually left me that year. That person grew up in the Soviet bloc of Czechoslovakia, so she had quite a lot of things to say about the current situation there in 2014. But to understand what happened in 2014, we actually have to go back even more, back to the Hitler era and the Nazi Germany that I'm sure Kambi will enjoy. And we have to talk about a controversial figure of Ukrainian history called Bandera. This man, I think his name was Stepan. I just gonna make sure. Yes, it was Stepan Bandera. He was a Ukrainian citizen who didn't want Ukraine to be part of the Soviet Union, and he wanted to liberate it. To do that, he was looking at his option, who can he join to help him with this cause. And again, I'm gonna clarify, I looked at all the sources. What I'm gonna tell you here is as verified as you can hope for. So Stepan Bandera did actually join the Nazi Germany, because Nazi Germany was the best option for him to liberate Ukraine. The controversy comes what Nazi Germany did to Ukraine, and not just Nazi Germany, it was actually Bandera's war unit. I don't actually remember what was it called at the time, but basically Bandera's Liberation Army was doing Nazi Germany's bidding, which at the time was actually murdering a shit ton. I think it was actually 150,000 Ukrainian Jews. But, and now we have to be careful about this, was Stepan Bandera actually part of this? We do not know for sure. What we do know is that he did sign with Germany to liberate Ukraine, but we also know that there were Jews working in his unit, meaning that his hatred for Jews was never proved, and we also know that Nazi Germany put him in a concentration camp. By him, we mean Stepan Bandera. So there are basically two possible scenarios. A, Stepan Bandera was murdering Jews, and he became too influential, so Nazi Germany had to get rid of him. Or B, Stepan Bandera actually didn't want to kill the Jews, so Nazi Germany jailed him so they can take over his army and kill the Jews. We do not know for sure. Why are we talking about this man, Stepan Bandera? I mean, here you can see him. The reason why we're talking about this man is because his name is probably the most important part of today's Russian propaganda in the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. So back in 1994, I will say what the Russian side says first. In 1994, NATO, and by NATO I mean EU, infiltrated Ukraine, and they used the Nazi party in Ukraine to overthrow the communism party that was elected in Ukraine at the time with 70% votes. And by doing so, they wanted to annihilate Russian people from Ukraine. That is the Russian part of the story. That's how Crimea invasion began, how Donetsk and Donbass invasion began. The Ukrainian part is the Ukrainian part of the story. I don't want to say EU part of the story. This is Ukrainian part of the story is that yes, the Nazi party was the one that overthrew the government, but they did it because they were only puppets of Russia. At the time, the government was not voted democratically. It was a rigged election. As in the past, we can definitely look in the past and we can know that Soviet Union countries' elections and even Soviet bloc like Czechoslovakia were rigged. There is no doubt about that. Belarus presidential elections were rigged as well. So therefore, this claim that the Ukrainian elections of Communism Party were rigged are definitely understandable and most likely correct. And they did that to free Ukraine from the Russia grasp, which Russia didn't like, and that's why they attacked them. So that is what happened in 2014. This Nazi party obviously is using Stepan Bandera as their hero. What I can tell you is that yes, it was the Nazi party that overthrew the government, respectively, they were the muscle. The very important thing to say here is that the Nazi party at the time had about 5,000 members. This is Ukraine we're talking about. This is a country with over 30 million people. The revolution that happened in Ukraine would not happen without the people. Those people were not part of any Nazi parties. Those people only took them because the Nazi party was the only one brave enough to stand up to Russia's government and take them out, basically. Therefore, it is not the Nazis that lead Ukraine. The Nazi party is very small. They are extremists. And they are not representing the people of Ukraine. That is basically probably the biggest Russian propaganda that is being used, and it is incorrect. Now we're gonna move to the probably hardest to describe time, which is 2014 to 2022, which is today. Yes, that's exactly why Putin calls Ukraine Nazis. So what really happened at this time is super hard to tell, because basically the main story is Crimea got taken. We know that. What happened on Crimea since then, we don't really know. In Donetsk and Donbass region, there was a war between Russian separatists and Ukrainians. Obviously, Putin was sponsoring the Russian separatists, probably sent them even soldiers and stuff to do that. The reason why these places is because Donetsk, Donbass, and Crimea were the parts of Ukraine that uh, had the most Russian citizens in it. So Putin basically wanted to take control of these areas that have the most Russians in it, but don't be mistaken. It is only these three parts. I mean, I'm gonna pull up the Ukraine map real quick and review you some picture. Perfect. So to understand, oh my fucking god. This is the map of Ukraine. This is Crimea. This is where a lot of Russians live. This is Donetsk or Donbass. I'm not sure which one of these is which. I'm gonna be honest, but this is where a lot of Russians live. In all the rest of Ukraine, it's basically just Ukrainians. There is very, very little Russians left in the rest of Ukraine. The rest of Ukraine has nothing to do with Russia, just to be clear on that. I mean, actually, this literally shows that mostly Ukrainian speaking, this predominantly, this and this. There are some Belarusians, obviously. Mostly Russian speaking, Donbass, Donetsk, ethnic Russian majority. Crimea is actually the only one who has the majority and significant ethnic Russian population. So, unfortunately, as I said, I tried. There are no clear news about what Ukrainians were doing to Russians in Donbass and Donetsk and what Russians were doing to Ukrainians in Donbass and Donetsk. It's a lot of propaganda from both sides, understandably. If there were war crimes being done by Ukrainians against Russians, I do not know. If it was the other way around, I do not know. This period in 2014 to 2022 is shrouded in a lot of mystery. But what really was happening there, we can probably guess from the next segment, which we finally get to today's war. So in 2022, February 22, I think it was February, was it 24? Doesn't matter, I guess you can Google that. Russians finally officially invaded Ukraine. They did not invade Ukraine only in Donetsk and Donbass, they also invaded Ukraine from the north and from the northeast, meaning they did not just attack the parts where there are a lot of Russian and native people, they also attacked the parts where there's literally only Ukrainians. Why did this happen? Are we trying to liberate the Russians? Like, what is the reasoning for this? Well, Putin's words are, these are Nazis, they are trying to genocide our people. For the genocide, he's mentioning the only Nazis thing that Ukraine did, for sure, that we can verify, is they banned Russian language as a, I don't know what to call it. They just basically banned Russian language. It's something Estonia did as well. And actually, as we found out, Estonia has more Russian population than Ukraine does. So it's kind of interesting Putin would use this as an argument, completely ignoring Estonia doing the same when it actually impacted way more people there. So it is not unheard of, and it is not violence towards Russian citizens. As we also found out, a lot of Russian citizens actually feel for Ukraine, and by those I mean the Russian citizens living in Ukraine, and actually did not welcome Russians with open arms and told them to basically fuck off. So, Putin invaded, and now the question is why? Why? I can tell you, it's very simple. There's not much to search for the reason why we invaded is no Russian reason, it's no Ukrainian reason, there is only one reason, and that is Putin. Putin is doing this for himself only. I do not believe he is insane, as some people like to claim. So far, he did nothing that would imply him being insane. He is a logical person, and the reason why he does this is to make his mark in history. Probably before he dies. He is a 70-year-old man. He doesn't look like it, but he is. Meaning that his life will end. Whether he's sick or not, I do not know. It's only speculation. But what he does want is to create new Soviet Russia. He's not trying to liberate Russians. He's not trying to stop EU. He only does this for himself and himself only. Therefore, what I want to make sure for everyone to understand, this is not a Ukraine-Russia war. This is not an EU versus Russia war. This is everyone versus Putin war. We are fighting Putin. We are not fighting Russians. Putin's influence in Russia is insane. He has all the power in Russia. He is the untouchable man, just like Xi Jinping or whatever the fuck the Honey the Pooh's name is in China. He has the absolute power. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. And this, what he's doing right now, not many Russians agree with him. And by not many Russians, I mean the Russians that actually know what the fuck is going on. I don't mean the citizens. I mean the generals and shit. A lot of them don't want this. Because they know it's not gonna help Russia in any way whatsoever. So, now we're gonna go to how the war is going, the progress of war. Well, Putin did not expect a lot of things, and I actually think I have an explanation for this. So, I guess we all in the last few days were surprised by a lot of things. Thing number one is probably Ukraine bravery. I must say that calling all male population to arms is not something I agree with Zelensky and Ukraine, and it is my number one complaint against Ukraine. I do not think that should happen in any country. It did, and a lot of Ukrainians are willing to fight, so it's not as terrible as it could be, but I do not agree with that. That is on Ukraine side. But other than that, a lot of citizens fight voluntarily. Women make Molotovs. Ukrainian bravery is insane, and their war capabilities are quite impressive. I don't think anyone expected that. Not Putin, and probably not Ukraine itself. It is incredible, and that is one reason why this war is not going as planned. Another reason that is probably very surprising is how weak Russia actually is. We all knew that they have old equipment, but that they would need to use the 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds boys that are in Russia's military because of the 1 year mandatory military service, that they would actually send them in Ukraine instead of their actual army is ridiculous. And it just shows that Russian army is nowhere near the power it used to be. And it is way weaker. It's still incredibly large, but it's just not strong at all. So I think that's something that everyone got surprised about. And the third thing that was surprising probably for the whole world is that EU, probably very famous for being very slow at deciding everything, like we have this issue that we need to solve, like let's take 2 months of paperwork and meetings to figure it out, actually managed to do sanctions within days, even with something like a SWIFT ban, which is unheard of. And very, very destructive sanction, and then that a lot of them sent actually weaponry to Ukraine. I think no one would actually expect that to happen within days of the war starting. That is not all though. The main reason, and this is speculating, but it is speculating on a lot of knowledge and experience I do possess, whether you like it or not. Soviet Russia has like this theme going on that happened in the past and is probably happening right now. I think the main issue that Putin faced in this war and why he's losing it is Russian lies. So as we talked, Putin is the strongest man in the world. And probably not many would willingly lie to him in his face, right? Because you'd be scared for your life. But also, you would probably lie about stuff that doesn't seem as important just to protect your own skin, right? What I do believe happened is that in 2014, the units that were sent to Crimea, Donbass, and Donetsk were supposed to convert Ukrainians to the Russian side and infiltrate the rest of Ukraine and convert as many people as possible. And I believe that it was basically going in a way, so Sergey, how many people did we convert today? And Sergey just getting the sweat of his fucking forehead. A lot, Mr. Putin, a lot. Like, so many people love you in Ukraine right now. That is basically what I believe happened. A lot of people told Putin that it's going way better than it actually did because they were scared for their positions, for their families, for their own lives. They're basically giving him little lies, making them look better in his eyes, so he keeps them around and doesn't actually hurt them or their families. Therefore, what Putin thought is that a lot of Ukraine is actually on his side. That was told to him by his own generals and shit. That is what I believe happened. This happened in Soviet Russia many times in many occasions. It is the web of lies that suddenly snapped. So Putin, what happened, went to Ukraine, and he was like, all right, Donetsk, Donbass, everyone is on my side. Like, this is basically mine already. We can basically just go for Kiev already. And then suddenly he found out that no one actually wants to fucking join him. Which is not what he thought would happen. Pretty sure that is what happened. But as I said, this last part is only speculation. And finally, we can get what does this mean for everyone: Russia, Ukraine, and EU. So, who is gonna lose on this the most? Well, actually, that we already know. We don't actually need this war to end to actually find out. The one who lost the most is Russia and its people. Russian people will live in poverty right now. It's gonna be insanely brutal, and I wanna say to all of you to not celebrate that because it is happening to someone who is not responsible for this. The Russian people are not responsible for this war. It's only Putin and the people that are too afraid to take him from power, meaning oligarchs mostly, generals and shit. Russian economy will be so basically raped, I'm not afraid to use the word, that I can't even imagine how like a regular normal Russian family will be able to pay its rent and food. It seems impossible in my head. Russian economy is fucked, and it's fucked for a long time. The longer this conflict goes, the worse it gets, but it's already at a terrible fucking state. And this will need probably 2 generations of lives to fix. At least. So, yes, Russia Russian people lost the most. The second who's gonna lose the most is Ukraine. It's by far not even close how much Russia lost. It will probably take about 10 years. It might actually even improve Ukraine's situation in the world. Like, it is gonna be rough for 10 years, my estimation, where they'll have to obviously rebuild infrastructure, get rid of all the fucking bombs and shit. Like, it's gonna take a while, yes, but thanks to what they shown to EU, like, EU now knows they can count on Ukraine. Therefore, we can trade with them easier. If we get them into EU, like, it's gonna economically boost Ukraine a lot. So Ukraine actually will gain out of this in the end, which obviously sounds bad because there are people losing lives, there are children losing lives, but we are talking economically, and in future it will actually help Ukraine. EU will also hurt. EU will hurt for sure, and actually I believe EU will hurt more than Ukraine because we are actually not gaining much from Ukraine. It's not exactly the best export state in the world. Like, us trading with them doesn't really improve our situation. And obviously our economy will be shaken. We might actually go into economic depression. Therefore, us getting out of this will probably hurt us. It probably won't be as bad as people like to say. For example, the most common thing to say is the gas prices will go to fucking moon. Uh, well, that depends on how the war will end, but like Russia would be insane to stop gas going from Europe, considering it's one of their biggest incomes in their country, and it's literally one of the, like, let's say three fucking things they can do to save their economy that's gonna be completely fucked. Therefore, I wouldn't be that worried, but it will definitely we will feel it, but it's not gonna be anywhere near the altitude that's gonna happen to Russia. How will the war end is the last part. Well, we know some things. We know Russia lost. We know Putin lost. And we know the rest of the world lost a little bit as well. But what will happen now? Well, we all know that Putin can't do more damage than he. I'm sorry, Putin can't do damage elsewhere than he already did, meaning that this will stop at Ukraine. Because it's obvious that he just can't fight EU. It's impossible. If he can't conquer Ukraine, he can't fight EU. Meaning Baltic states are safe, Slovakia is safe, Poland is safe, Finland is safe. Uh, so what are Putin's options right now? Putin is in a between a rock and a hard place. If he doesn't conquer Ukraine, the people will be insanely mad because obviously they will realize that their lack of money that is gonna happen because of the economic situation was caused by the war. And if we lost the war as well, then why the fuck is Putin leading us, right? So to stop the people's rage, he will need to conquer Ukraine. But to conquer Ukraine, he would have to kill a lot of civilians and do a lot of war crimes. And that obviously is also gonna anger his people if those news get there, because there is a lot of censorship in Russia, but it will also anger Europe a lot. Therefore, Putin has this Sophia choice, basically. Like, what do I do? And honestly, I don't know what he will do. Like, I'd say he's gonna try a lot. Is he gonna go down to thermobaric rockets? It seems like he already might have. Will he go to chemical weapons? Will he go to nuclear? I'm gonna say he's not gonna go nuclear. Like, he would be insane to do that. And I am gonna repeat myself, I do not believe Putin is insane. Therefore, It is hard to say how this will end. Won't end in nuclear war, and it will not end in the Third World War. I can tell you that much. It might end with a Cold War, but it seems also very unlikely considering that the Russian economy will probably not be able to handle that at all to actually have a second Cold War. So it most likely will just end where it is right now. Ukraine will win, EU will win. The only question is how many civilians will Putin kill before he finally gives up? That is the most likely scenario. The second most likely scenario is he will use chemical weapons, thermobaric weapons. He will fucking destroy Kiev, Kharkov, Kharkiv. I'm sorry, Kharkov is actually a Russian name for the city. Kharkiv is the Ukrainian one. And the other cities, and he'll actually manage to slice Ukraine in half. Ukraine will just create a new state on the west, and Putin will just conquer the east. But it just seems not very worth for anyone for this to happen. And that is basically it. Putin lost. Ukrainians won. The only question is how much bloodshed will Putin do before he gives up? And if you have any questions or comments in the chat right now, is a good time to talk. Whether you disagree with something I said, etc. Yeah, that is also good to mention that basically what Putin did not just destroyed Russian economy, but also completely destroyed Russian goals, which was to make a strong bloc against Europe. But why am I at fucking desolate? But instead of creating a good Russian bloc against Europe, he actually increased Europe, where now suddenly Sweden wants to join NATO, Finland wants to join NATO, Ukraine wants to join EU. Like all of these countries where Switzerland used to be neutral, Norway used to be neutral, both Switzerland and Norway supported Ukraine in this conflict. Like he basically just completely destroyed everything that Russia was striving for in this world for the past 100 years. So yes, that is another defeat to Putin. Our opinion is that in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine is necessary to change the government, and then we are fraternal peoples. We can become great allies. Hoping that Russia would join EU, that they would change the government and join EU. There is a big worry for that. What China would do against that? China would not like that at all. So that is dangerous by itself. It was good to have Russia as our enemy while the enemy was not actually doing anything. It's good to keep the balance of power. So that is one conclusion that I'm not sure we want to explore. Si nechtějí připojit k Rusku, protože si Putin bude mongolskou armádu Buranu. He's probably expecting same result as in 2014, 2015. You'll get that time when Putin starts wars, popularity is increased. December, February 2014. Yes, this is when the Ukrainian conflict started the first time. But to this, I have to say that the consequences for Russia from this war are gonna be very brutal compared to the consequences of this, what happened back in 2014. What happened in 2014, the way they stopped Putin from aggressing further was by NA was completely dumped oil prices making making Russia's export less viable, meaning that Russia had a less income of money for a bit until the oil prices recover. What we did in the last week is completely different and so much destructive towards Russian economy that this might change very fast and hopefully will. But you know that Putin lost, he's losing but not lost yet. Because it's obvious. It's obvious he lost. I mean, I don't know what exactly you want me to say. He can't use the nuclear arsenal because that would be loose for everyone. He can use the chemical weapons, he can use the thermobaric weapon, but if he uses that, it's not a win for him. And there's nothing else he can do. Therefore, he lost. He can only give up, which is also a lot. Nuclear war, climate change, no. Climate change more is still more serious issue right now than it is nuclear war. We are nowhere near nuclear war. Again, I will repeat this. For nuclear war to happen, Berlin would have to be attacked, or Moscow would have to be attacked. Neither of which is gonna happen. Or Putin would have to be insane. I guess that's the most likely scenario, but I do not believe that. I think we can be happy that COVID talks have stopped completely because it was completely out of hand. Co když to plánoval, neplánoval. Also started another court trial for Navalny, so world would ignore it and focus on Ukraine. He's not defeated, still has strong allies in Middle East like Kazakhstan. Yeah, that's a good question. Kazakhstan actually is not his strong. That is one thing I forgot to mention. Putin already was making Soviet Union before all this happened. Obviously, Putin, once he became president of Russia, wasn't just like not doing anything for 20 years. He was trying to convert Kazakhstan to become his vassal state, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldavia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. These countries were supposed to be his new Soviet Union undercover without people knowing, without it being official, right? What happened in this war was Kazakhstan said, nah, Putin, fuck off. We don't actually want to fight with you. Azerbaijan said, no, Putin, fuck off. We don't want to fight with you. Half of Georgia said, Putin, fuck off. We don't want to fight with you. Ukraine told him to go fuck himself. Belarus was the only one who openly joined him. And Moldavia seems very torn whether it should or not. Therefore, this was also another big defeat for Putin. And the reason I think this happened is because they all realized that Putin is weak. Because when they watched Ukraine, they were expecting that he would just roll over Ukraine. And when they saw how much he's struggling and now he needs their help to join, they realized, well, maybe we shouldn't back him up. So yeah, Putin's influence of the new Soviet Union also completely crashed. Also very important to note. I forgot about that. Iraq is fine. He once said that without Russia is life on board worthless. I mean, that's just speculating on something we will find out within a few months, I guess. But what I can tell you is Putin lost. And now it's the only question right now is what kind of loss is he willing to take? Because he has to take one. We all can hope it's gonna be the most peaceful one. Any other questions? This took way fucking longer than I expected. Seems like we're good. You can always ask questions in the comment section. I'll ask everything there. You know my question. Alright, let me check. Do you think Putin gets that much support from Russians purely due to propaganda, or do Russians actually support what he's doing? It's a very hard question that I cannot answer. Unfortunately, the propaganda in Russia is strong. I'm sure there is a lot of Putin supporters, but propaganda is very easy at peace times. It's very hard at war times. Like, he can't hide everything that is happening right now. Like, I mean, just imagine you're in a Russian mind right now, right? You're a Russian, you're one of the, not one of the, you're the biggest country in the world. And you attacked fucking baby Ukraine over here. Do you think, like, not a like, if I was a Russian, I would be asking, why the fuck are we still fighting them? Shouldn't we have won, like, a week fucking ago? Like, look how fucking tiny they are. Like, Russians will ask questions. And if Russia won't fucking answer them, then they'll search for the answers themselves. And that's how propaganda starts failing. So, actually, that's another good reason for Putin to put an end to this as fast as possible. This says that 2/3 of Russians support Putin. Let's see, we can't be sure. So the interview with Russian skier, he don't know anything. They said a lot of soldiers that were sent to Ukraine, at least to Kiev, are just kids that aren't actual soldiers. They're just in army because they have to, because of mandatory army service. No one expected Putin would actually send these kids to Ukraine. But he did, which only shows how weak Russia is. So check Moscow journalist, and he said actually it's pretty strong support for Putin. You can't say, no one can say how strong support for Putin is. I mean, do this fucking questionnaire in Russian in communist Czechoslovakia. Like, obviously, the fucking support for Russia would there be also big, because no one actually wants to say the truth. It's dangerous to say the truth. Like, we can't know. Maybe it actually is, maybe it isn't. Are these all questions? So thank you for watching. Please educate yourself on this. Find your own sources. I always want to recommend, when you're looking at an issue, you should always look at arguments from both sides. And that's the way where you find, that's the way you can find the truth. Do not, if you're a fan of West, don't just watch Western media. If you're a fan of Russia, don't just watch Eastern media. Always look at both sides. It is not that hard to find out where the truth lies. I looked at a lot of Russian propaganda in the last few days to actually see what their arguments are. Whether there is some truth about the Nazi Ukraine and the EU trying to Nazi everything under its control. There's not. But it's still worth checking out, because you never know. What do you think about the reaction of the West? I think it's the best we could have hoped for. I would want more, but I think it's very solid. I expected way less. That's what I'm gonna say. I would have never thought we would send weapons to Ukraine.
What client? I cannot tell you. It's confidential.
Oh, come on, why not?
No, I can't.
Alright,
Anyway, how is
thank you
everything?
for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave your questions in comments below.